Hello, everybody. My name is John Gennaro. This is Generally Speaking. I am the managing editor of Bolts from the Blue. We are here to talk about the San Diego Chargers. It is the preseason. People are still excited. Nobody is seriously injured yet. There's already a handful of you here to watch me talk about the Chargers because everyone's pumped up. So, let's talk about the Chargers. We're going to spend probably the majority of this hour plus previewing Friday's game between the Chargers and Seahawks because me and Ben pretty much went over everything already with the Chargers and Cowboys, and me and him are not talking again until after the Seahawks game. So we're going to preview some of the Seahawks game, which is going to be a great, it's everything you want out of a preseason game. We're going to talk injuries, we're going to talk depth chart, we're going to talk position battles. Hold on. Let's see if this ruins my microphone. Nope, still good. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, all of them having to do with the San Diego Chargers. But first of all, I'm going to commiserate with someone who's already in the comments and already commenting, who I'm going to pronounce this a fro among few, who doesn't believe he's going to be able to see the Seattle-San Diego game live. In fact, there's like a 95% chance I'm not going to be able to see that game live either, which is very unfortunate. You guys are going to have to deal with Richard for post-game recap and a second-half thread, which we probably need because the first game tried to do it all in one thread and the thing slowed down to a crawl because there was so many of you wanting to comment during that game. In the Seahawks game, there should be even more people wanting to comment. So, and I'm not going to be on social media or whatever because there is in all likelihood, I will be on a plane during that game. I know is poor planning on my part. I will be at the Cowboys-Ravens game on Saturday. If you follow either my personal account, which is John_Gennaro on Twitter, or the Chargers account, which is BFTB_Chargers, because they don't allow enough characters to spell out Bolts from the Blue. If you follow either of those, I'll probably send out a handful of tweets from that wonderful, immaculate, gigantic stadium, which I've never been to but always wanted to go to, and it should be a blast. But you guys will probably end up getting my thoughts about the game on Saturday after I get a chance to go back and watch the game once it's been completed. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to the game, but sometimes you got to miss a preseason game. And when you have to miss a preseason game, it's better that you miss, I don't know, one of those instead of a regular season game. Let me see. Yeah, same beer as last week because I haven't been drinking very fast or very a lot because it's not the regular season yet. So this is actually the same 12-pack of beer from a week ago. It's still good, though. It's good beer. All right, we have a question. Let me read it because it looks long. I was going over free agent defensive end options now and next year since it looks like Corey Liuget won't be healthy enough to carry Kendall Reyes and Sean Lissamore to a higher than barely competent season. And the only feasible option with regard to adding talent would be either 35-year-old Brett Kiesel, who I thought retired, or 34-year-old Ryan Pickett, neither of which are the sexiest of options. Are there any defensive ends who might not either make the cut because they're on a team with serious depth or might even be free agent defensive ends next year that appeal to you? Because all I see is, we might have to use a first-rounder on a defensive end next season. I don't think you can start picking out who you have to use first-rounders on next year. I'll tell you what I tell everyone at the end of the season when they want to talk, hey, who are the Chargers going to draft? there's a whole free agency period between now and next year's draft. So even if they desperately need a defensive lineman, there's a lot of options out there before you even get into the draft. You can't really address a team's draft needs until 1 or 2 weeks before the draft, because their biggest need could be cornerback, and then they go out and they sign a cornerback, and then their biggest need is something else. So let's not talk about the draft yet. As far as defensive ends who might not make the cut or might be free agents next year, I'll say this, and I don't say this often. I don't know that I've ever said this, but I will say this. If there is a free agent defensive lineman either this year after cuts or next offseason who can come in and help the Chargers, I have full confidence that Tom Telesco will find him and sign him. Because pretty much every signing he's made has worked out. I mean, even Sean Lismore was a trade, but he was better than we thought he would be. Lawrence Guy was signed off the street. He was better than we thought he would be. David Johnson looks like a steal and a half. Cavell Connor is probably the same. Reggie Walker is an amazing signing by him. So if defensive line is as big as a problem as we're making it out to be, and we're making it out to be a huge problem. I saw people today say the Chargers have the worst defensive line in the league if Corey Liuget is hurt. I don't know that that's true. There's a lot of bad defensive lines out there. And, we're really discounting some of the guys that are average and just calling them garbage. So, I don't know. I mean, there was that guy on the Rams whose name I don't remember, who's been hurt for most of training camp and might make their team or might not. There's going to be some defensive tackles out there. I think Antonio Garay is a free agent. I think Albreu Franklin probably hasn't signed anywhere yet. I mean, there's a lot of 33, 34, 35-year-old guys you can sign for a year and be fine. I mean, they'll be okay at the nose, but they'll be pretty good at defensive end if they've played there before. I don't like Brett Kiesel because I thought he retired. Brian Pickett, okay, I guess. I mean, he played. He wasn't a great defensive end. He was actually a little bit better when the Packers stuck him at the nose. But I mean, there's not a ton of defensive line depth out there for 3-4 defenses, and this is the thing that I've gone over and over and over again is 3-4 defenses are for teams that don't want to go searching for super talented linebackers and super talented pass rushers. You can take guys like Jerry Atachu that are just speed only, and that's all they do is speed, and you can plug them in there as a pass rusher in a 3-4 defense. Could you do it in a 4-3? Absolutely not. You can take a guy like Manti Te'o who's got half a game and put him in there as a starter and have him play 2 to 3 plays every series. Can you do that in a 4-3 defense? Absolutely not. So the 3-4 puts all of the pressure on the talent. Holy crap, there's a lot of people here. Hello. The 3-4 puts all of the pressure on the defensive line, and it means you don't have to have as much talent at the pass rusher spots or the linebacker spots. You can deal with these guys that do one thing really well but aren't really complete players. With a 4-3 defense, you can't do that. I mean, you need to have talented defensive linemen, but you also need the talented linebackers. So there's a lot of pressure on 3-4 defensive linemen, which makes them very, very high in demand, especially since half the league is running 3-4 now, just about. So they're going to be really hard to find. Talented defensive linemen that are free agents are really, really hard to find. Guys that have played in the 3-4 before, really hard to find. You can find a bunch of them in the 4-3 because you don't need to be as talented to play defensive tackle in a 4-3. You can be one-dimensional. 3-4 you can't. So those guys are really, really hard to find, as we're finding out. The Chargers basically have a whole bunch of pretty average 3-4 defensive linemen. We got Kendall Reyes, who may or may not fit as a 3-4 defensive end, and we have Corey Liuget, who can't seem to stay healthy. So these guys are really hard to find. They're physical freaks of nature, and it's hard to keep them. It's hard to keep them healthy. So if they're out there, if one of them becomes available, if a competent 3-4 defensive lineman becomes available either by cuts or off-season free agent, he's going to be signed in a hurry and probably for a lot of money. Chargers don't really have a lot of money, so I don't know. I mean, I think Kyle and Jerome have come to calling Tom Telesco Coupon God, because he finds a lot of these guys that Reggie Walker, Cavell Connor, Brandon Flowers on a 1-year contract worth nothing. He finds a lot of these guys and ends up, getting a guy that maybe wasn't looked at by all the different teams, and then once you actually look at him under a microscope, you're like, damn, this guy's really good. So I think he'll find somebody, and I think we'll be impressed by that person. I just don't know who that person is. New haircut. Yeah, I tried to even out the beard, and it wasn't even, and it wasn't even, and then it was gone. And then I tried to even out the sideburns, and then they weren't even, and then they weren't even, and then my hair was gone. So yeah, haircut. Any idea of a veteran defensive lineman the Bolts could trade for after cuts? Not really. I mean, you guys ask me this every week, because you're super worried about the defensive line depth. But, are you really going to find someone out there that's better than Lawrence Guy? Probably not. You going to find someone that's better than Kwame Gaithers? Probably not. So, probably not. But I don't know. Telesco, that's his job. That's not my job. If it was my job to know who all the undervalued defensive linemen who may or may not be available in the next year were, I would know, but I don't. Do you think Brandon Flowers will be playing on Friday, and if so, are you comfortable with him playing so soon after not practicing? Good question. I'm comfortable with him. See, if this was week 1, I could say I'd be comfortable with him going out and playing one series, but it's week 2. So everyone's probably getting a quarter, almost a half of playing. Don't know if I'm super comfortable with that, but here's the other thing to think about. I'm not necessarily worried about him getting injured again. It's more like, he'll just be gassed and might lose comp. I don't know. I guess if I was there every day and I was seeing him practice, I would have a better answer. But right now, I'm going to say yes. It's a new defense. He hasn't been practicing a lot. It would be really good for him to get out there and be in the defense, learn what works, learn what doesn't, get some real-life reps. We're going to talk about the Seattle wide receivers in a minute, though, because that's an important part of that answer. Who cut the hair? I did, pretty much by accident. And funny story, so I had beard and mustache trimmer. I'm trying to shave the beard down. I screw that up, so I shave it down to the goatee again, which I'm thinking about growing out the beard again because now I hate the goatee. But after the beard was gone, I was trying to even out the sideburns, and then I screwed those up, and then they were too high. I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just shave my head, which I've done a million times with the beard trimmer before. And I start shaving my head, and I get about halfway. I get to, the front half of my hair, and then my beard trimmer, which was 5 years old, just died. No matter what I did, I couldn't get it to come back to life. So I had to throw on a Chargers hat, go to the store with a half-shaved head just imagine if, I don't know, gust of wind blew it off or something. Yeah, so I had to go to the store with a half-shaved head to buy clippers so I could continue shaving my head, which I hadn't planned to do at all. It's early, but do I think Dontrell Inman is a lock to make the 53-man roster now? If he doesn't get injured, yeah. Just wanted to ask if you think Pagano's scheme will be a problem against the mobile quarterbacks they will face next season. It was a problem against the mobile quarterbacks last year, wasn't it? Yes. But see, here's the thing. It was a problem against mobile quarterbacks last year because every mobile quarterback they faced had at least one run of like 20 yards. That was, on 3rd and 10, they would run for 20 yards. But it wasn't a consistent thing. It wasn't like every single series the quarterback would run for 15, 20, 30, 40 yards. I don't think any quarterbacks ran it in for a touchdown. It's just kind of the scheme they run. Most of the linebackers are dropping back. The defensive line isn't good enough to crush the pocket, and the pass rushers mostly come on the outside. So all he really needs is for one of his offensive linemen to win their battle with one of the defensive linemen, and boom, there's a lane. And since all of the cornerbacks and all the linebackers went back as soon as the ball was snapped, he's got at least 10 to 15 yards before anyone's getting to him. So unless the defensive line talent improves from last year to this year, which it doesn't really look like that's happening, then yeah, it'll probably continue to be a problem because they have a not great defensive line and a soft zone. Our D-line is definitely bottom 10 for sure, don't you think? Look, last year, the defensive line stunk, right? But the year before, the whole year before, all of 2012, it was the same defensive line. It was Corey Liuget, it was Kendall Reyes, and it was Aubrey Franklin / Cam Thomas. And we loved that defensive line. We loved it. Last year, heading into the season last year, everyone was saying, every Charger fan, every non-Charger fan was saying, the defense will be good. The question is, will the offense be okay? That was everyone's question. They were like, oh, okay, well, we got Derek Cox, so we're good at cornerback. Sharice Wright will be fine at the other position. Plus, we have Marcus Gilchrist playing safety, which is where he's supposed to be. We have this dominant defensive line from last year of Kendall Reyes, Cam Thomas, and Corey Liuget. We have Manti Te'o, who's going to be awesome. And then the defense stunk. It was terrible. It was terrible. But you have to remember how much everyone loved Kendall Reyes after his rookie year and how much everyone loved Corey Liuget after his sophomore year and Cam Thomas after his 3rd year. And last year we just stopped loving Kendall Reyes because he wasn't as good. And then, now we're starting to throw Corey Liuget. I saw people calling him Mr. Glass today because he keeps getting hurt. And no one likes Sean Lismore because he's not sexy. I mean, he might be. Not his wife, but he's a converted defensive end that we traded a 6th-round pick for last year, I think. And he's a big white guy that's not going to come in and crush the pocket. He's just sort of, you hope he's average. So he's not Ryan Carruthers. We're like, oh my God, he might be the strongest man on the field on every play. So I'm hesitant to say the defensive line is one of the 10 worst in the league because there's still potential there. I mean, Kendall Reyes has potential to be as good as he was his rookie year, does he not? And Corey Liuget has the potential to basically play at a Pro Bowl level because he did it a year and a half ago. So if those guys can play at that level, no, I think the defensive line is almost top 10. But comparing defensive lines across the league is just weird in general because you're comparing 3-4 to 4-3. Corey Liuget will be fine. As we gel and if we stay healthy, we will be solid. Okay. Apparently a bunch of Chargers besides Tom Telesco did the Ice Bucket Challenge. Everyone is doing the Ice Bucket Challenge. You want to know why? Because it doesn't hurt. It's kind of cold, but whatever. It's the middle of summer. No one's doing it when it's snowing out. And it is a really easy way to look like a good guy. Really easy way to look like a good guy. Apparently someone just challenged me to do the Ice Bucket Challenge. Yes, sure. I'll do it this weekend. Why not? The Seahawks are physical and like to inflict as much pain as possible between and near the end of the whistles. How sure are you that they tone that back or entirely take it out of a meaningless preseason game? Not sure. I don't think they will. You know, a good coach will tell you that you can't turn that on. Good coach will tell you can't just turn on toughness and meanness when you want it. You can't just go, oh, it's a regular season, time to be tough and mean. You have to start that in the preseason and get into that mindset and just carry it into the regular season. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were very tough. So here's what I was going to talk about. So this is why it's a perfect preseason game for the Chargers, because really what you want out of a preseason game, I know what the fans want. The fans want, the dumb fans, they want cupcakes. They want the team to go 4-0 and win every game by 30 points. That doesn't help anybody. The Chargers team that went 1-15, they went 4-0 in the preseason. The Chargers team that went 14-2 went 0-4 in the preseason. Records don't matter in the preseason. So what a good coach wants in the preseason, what you should want in the preseason, is a challenge. And you kind of hope that one part or another of your team gets challenged in some way. But with the Seahawks game, it's basically a challenge of everything. You have to travel. Seattle's not that close. It's a pretty far travel. Granted, you're not changing time zones. You're not playing early. You're not playing Sunday morning. You still have to travel, and it's pretty far. So you get to travel. You go to the loudest stadium in the league. The first time the team plays there since winning the Super Bowl. So that it's going to be loud. Their fans are going to be absolutely bonkers. Even if it's a preseason game, for that first half that the first stringers are in, the Chargers will not be able to hear anything, much less themselves. So you get that challenge. It's a tough defense, if not the best defense in the league. It's an offense with a very good offensive line, a very good running game, and a very good quarterback. Really, you could make an argument that the only people not really getting challenged here are the cornerbacks, because personally, I don't think the Seahawks wide receivers are very good. I believe Doug Baldwin and Golden Tate signed elsewhere, so I don't even know who Seattle's wide receivers are. Percy Harvin and some other people. Even the guy who had that one really great year with the Vikings and Brett Favre and then never did anything ever again despite getting a lot of money. He retired, so even he's gone. So, and I think John Carlson might be gone. They don't really have much in terms of wide receivers unless I missed something. But at the same time, Russell Wilson, in that Ben Roethlisberger way or Fran Tarkenton way, can extend the play for so long that the cornerbacks do kind of get tested. Because guarding a guy for 10 seconds is nearly impossible. So the defensive line will get tested for the Chargers. Their offensive line will get tested. The cornerbacks will kind of get tested. We'll see how bad we are against mobile quarterbacks. And you have to play in a loud, rowdy environment while traveling on the road. We are going to have a very good picture of what the team's flaws are after this game. We're going to know. We're going to know if it's the passing defense. We're going to know if it's the run defense. We're going to know if it's the offensive line. We're going to know if it's nerves, if they can't travel, if the offense isn't ready, the passing offense isn't ready, if Ryan Matthews fumbling is a problem. Like, we're going to know all of the flaws of this team. As I went back and I re-listened to that podcast with me and Ben, and almost everything we touched on, we ended by saying, like, well, we don't know yet. We don't know. Well, the offense looked great, but the Cowboys are terrible. And the defense looked good, but none of the Cowboys played. So we have no idea what this team's flaws are yet. We are going to find out in Seattle. That's why I'm excited for the game. That's why I'm a little mad I have to miss it live, but whatever. Schedules are schedules. But it's an exciting game for Charger fans because we're going to know exactly, after this game, we're going to know exactly what the team needs to do in the next month to prepare for the season. What player will I be looking at closely when I'm able to watch the Seahawks game? Chris Watt, who I think is going to play, might even start at right guard. That's a big one for me. as much as he's been around forever and you sort of know what you're getting with him, I'll be interested to see how Antonio Gates looks. He looked just by the end of last season, he looked like he couldn't run. He was so slow that when he was running, it just looked like a kind of fast walk. So I'll be interested to see how spry he looks. Excuse me. Obviously, the defensive secondary, I'll be staring at. If it's Brandon Flowers, I'll be watching Brandon Flowers. It's not going to be Jason Verrett, but if it is, then awesome. I'll be watching the strong safeties. I'm really interested to see how Kwame Gaithers plays a nose tackle, because it looks like Corey Legit's not going to play again. And against the Cowboys, what they did was Sean Lisfor slid over to that defensive end slot that Legit plays, because that's really, we call it nose tackle because it's the middle of the line. But really, the entire focus of the defense is on that defensive end spot that Corey Legit plays, because that's the spot that demands the most attention. Because when he's out there, he's the only one on the defensive line commanding the double team. So the defense works around that. That's basically the center. That's almost the nose of the defense right there. So that's why it's important that Lismore plays there instead of, say, Lawrence Guy playing there and Lismore staying at the nose. So if Lismore slides over, I'll be really interested to see. Kwame Gaithers had a pretty good game against the Cowboys. And he's a big, strong, smart kid. And he's got one flaw in his game, and it's a huge one. And that's that he plays way too tall. He's a very tall guy, and he plays too tall. And he just doesn't get down low enough to compete with offensive linemen, especially centers and guards. But he looked better doing it against the Cowboys, which is promising. So if he can do that again against the Seahawks, who have very good center, very good guards, and he does it against the first stringers, then that would make me feel a lot better about Corey Legit's situation. Which player do you think is going to get screwed over the most over the noise level in Seattle? Which player do I think is going to get screwed over the most over the noise level in Seattle? Here's a fun one that no one will like. Brandon Oliver. I said this. There was 2 points that I made on the podcast with Ben. One was that the fourth running back they keep on the roster needs to do something besides be a running back. He needs to be able to catch the ball. He needs to be able to contribute on special teams in some way, because that guy more often than not is going to be inactive. And even when he's not inactive, he's probably not running the ball. So he needs to be able to do other things. Pointed that out. Then I pointed out the fact that I didn't like any of the people they were giving chance to on kick returns, specifically Donald Brown, and how pretty much everyone that was returning kicks last week just looked kind of lost. And lo and behold, I heard this week, almost, I guess, in an effort to help him make the roster, that Brandon Oliver is getting a chance to return kicks. So I think they're going to give Brandon Oliver a chance to return kicks. I could see the noise level bothering Brandon Oliver. Not just on a running back level, which I do think it will. I think we're heading straight into, this happens almost every year, but after his big game against the Cowboys, everyone's going to be watching Brandon Oliver. It's going to be pressure on Brandon Oliver for the first time. His second game in the NFL, he's already got pressure on him. There's already expectations. And he's going up against the number one defense in the league, which is almost unbeatable at home in Seattle, especially with their fans being completely insane. And he's going to be asked to be as good as he was last week against the worst defense in the league at home. So I think we're heading towards a game where Brandon Oliver has like 5 carries for 4 yards and drops a pass. But more than that, I could very much see him doing something stupid on a kick return. Dropping one, fumbling when he gets hit, taking the wrong route, running into his own guy. Brandon Oliver's rookie, played at Buffalo. Not really used to the big stage, play at Buffalo. So I could see him having a bad game that makes everyone go like, oh, maybe not, which is going to be completely wrong. It's going to be we're already too far in optimism, and a bad game's going to take everyone too far to pessimism. There's probably a center in there somewhere, but if you're asking me which guy I think is going to suffer from the noise, that's my guy. Or Brandon Flowers, because he doesn't really know the defense, but it's pretty easy. What one-on-one matchup, player versus player, are you most interested in seeing in the Seahawks game? As a bonus, which second or third string player do you think the fan base will fall in love with this week? It's not usually a different guy every week. It's usually the same guy. They'll probably still be all in love with Brandon Oliver. Let's see. But I'll give you an answer anyway. Player versus player I'm most interested in seeing. Keenan Allen and Richard Sherman. I know that shouldn't be the case because whatever, it's a pointless preseason game, but that is such a good test for Keenan. That is such a good test for him because his game is really well set up to play against someone like Richard Sherman, but Richard Sherman knows that and plays a different game against. It's going to be fun. Like I love football. And preseason football isn't football, but there's remnants of real football in it. And Keenan Allen versus Richard Sherman is a remnant of real football, and it is going to be so much fun. I might watch every play twice just to see what happens with the ball, and then go back and watch what happens with Keenan and Richard Sherman. Oh, right, I said second or third string player the fan base will fall in love with this week. It's going to be some Chris Davis. Some cornerback is going to have like an interception. Everyone's going to be like, man, he's so great. And it's Chris Davis. Is the rest of our preseason going to be mind games? Should we run the Wildcat just to throw Seattle, Arizona, San Francisco off? Have Weddle punt and kick. Rivers throws to Nick Novak. No, I mean, you kind of do the opposite of that. Instead of throwing something weird at them so they're expecting something weird in the season, you just sort of go super vanilla, run your base offense, your base defense, live with anything that happens, and trying to show them anything that you're trying to do, but at the same time stick with your base so that your players are still getting a feel for what they'll be doing in the offense and what they'll be doing in the defense. Like, if Rivers is running the Wildcat and throwing passes to David Johnson deep down the field, like, that doesn't mean anything for the regular season because they're not going to run that play in the regular season. So now you're just wasting time. At that point, don't even play the game. We have three very capable and talented guys in the backfield. Before we saw what Johnson could do, do you think Johnson can make us a top 5 running team? Top 5 running team. I think the Chargers can be a top 5 running team, but I don't think it's going to have anything. Well, I shouldn't say I don't think it's going to have anything to do with David Johnson. I think you're giving David Johnson too much credit. I think Coach D, Joe D'Alessandris, can make us a top 5 running team. Like, what I noticed isn't. I loved everything the offensive line did against the Cowboys. Cowboys' defense is terrible, but I loved everything the offensive line did. I love what David Johnson did too. But the offensive line is a good cohesive unit that's very comfortable with what Coach D is throwing at them. So I think they can be a top 5 running team, but I don't think it would entirely be because of David Johnson. How much does our D benefit if Kwame Gaithers comes out all strong and murders centers and guards left and right? Be careful. Shouldn't be counting on people to all of a sudden become players that they never can be. The 16-0 Patriots were also 0-4 in the preseason. The 0-16 Lions were 4-0 in the preseason. So there you go. Be good in the preseason, be bad in the regular season. Be bad in the preseason, and be good in the regular season. Which, you know, kind of makes you want to lose preseason games, but overall it doesn't matter. I thought Seattle's offensive line was a dumpster fire. Really? They were great last year. Maybe they all disappeared the same way their wide receivers did. I don't know. Oh, okay. They have a great left tackle when healthy. They have a great center. The rest of the offensive line is iffy. I watched them sort of push around the 49ers defensive line twice last year, and that's a tough thing to do. People getting excited for Brandon Oliver on kick return and punt return. Let's make him quarterback, starting quarterback. Do you see Ladarius Green getting more playing time overall than Gates this year? Not unless Gates gets injured. Thoughts on Troutman? He looked awesome last week at guard and center. I like him a lot. I would like to know if he lost weight. He was a bit thick last year for what they were asking him to do at guard. If he lost like 10 or 15 pounds, then he'd be perfect. Maybe even just 5 or 10 pounds. But I thought he looked good. Again, it's like I said, me and Higgins were just every time it's this guy looked great, but it's against the Cowboys. So Troutman looked great, but it was against the Cowboys. So what would happen if most everybody on the Chargers had a career year or close to it this season? Would we win the Super Bowl? I don't know what that means. Like, Rivers has the best year of his career. Gates has the best year of his career. Floyd, Allen have the best years of their career. Woodhead, Matthews have the best year of their career. The entire defensive line, all of the linebackers, all the set. If 20 out of 22 guys have the best year of their entire career, yes, you win the Super Bowl. Will playing in a loud stadium like Seattle's early in the preseason help later on in the season? Absolutely. Nick wants to bet me that Oliver makes the team. Okay, so I said that. When did I say that? I think I said it in the thing with Higgins. That if Oliver makes the team, it's because he's a halfway decent backup plan for Ryan Matthews next year. Not because that he's going to do anything this year. It's because it's a halfway decent backup plan for next year. It just depends on how much they feel like they need a backup plan, or if they can find another one. But yeah, I'll buy Oliver making the team. Boltricity is having trouble seeing the video. I'm gauging by your comments that he's probably the only one. I guess, I don't know, tell him to refresh or something. I could see Allen and Sherman getting into a fight. Not in the preseason. Those guys play hard, but they're also not stupid. Would you be okay with the Chargers being on Hard Knocks? Holy crap, have I been doing this for 40 minutes already? Guess so. Would you be okay with the Chargers being on Hard Knocks? Yeah, I've been saying for a long time I'd be okay with that. You know, Hard Knocks got this bad reputation. The thought process somehow became, if you're on Hard Knocks, all of a sudden your team is going to have problems. You're going to have guys that get in trouble. Your team's going to be bad. Whatever. Here's the thing. The guys on those teams were already bad. They were already loudmouths that craved attention. That's why Hard Knocks picked them. Like, they didn't pick the Bengals because, hey, the Bengals might be good this year. They picked the Bengals because the Bengals had a bunch of personalities on the team. Because they had Pac-Man Jones and Chad Ochocinco. They didn't pick the Cowboys because they thought the Cowboys were going to be good. They picked the Cowboys because the Cowboys had Terrell Owens and a whole bunch of other personalities, Martellus Bennett. So I would be okay with the Chargers being on Hard Knocks, and I think they have fun personalities. They have Eric Weddle and, I don't know, Ryan Matthews, and Keenan Allen's kind of fun. Johnny Troutman has the funniest Instagram. But I don't think being on Hard Knocks all of a sudden makes your team roster worse. I don't think it makes your team worse. I think they just pick teams that have issues already because that's interesting. So yes, I would be totally okay with the Chargers being on Hard Knocks. What do I expect out of Jason Verrett his rookie year? Are we as fans placing too much faith in a rookie cornerback, a position notoriously hard to excel at as a first-year player? To answer your second question first, yes. To answer your first question second, what do I expect out of him his rookie year? I expect him to be an average nickel cornerback. Anyone else see Willie Smith last week? He looked like a decent backup left tackle. Also, how did Mike Harris play? Both of them played okay, but they played against a really, really awful defensive line. Is there a trap game starting to emerge in this year's schedule for the Chargers, given how, say, a certain team or two is coming together this year? A trap game? I'm looking this up. I got to check the schedule, because that's a good enough question to make me check the schedule. Chargers schedule. Oh, I really hate not having a mouse that works. All right, let's see. Cardinals, Seahawks, Bills, Jaguars, Jets, Raiders, Chiefs, Broncos, Dolphins, Raiders, Rams, Ravens, Patriots, Broncos, Niners, Chiefs. Whew! These last 5 games are going to be tough. A trap game. By trap game, I'm going to assume you mean a game that we, the fans, probably expect the team will win, but they won't. Let's see. Games we probably expect them to win. Bills, Jaguars, Jets, Dolphins. That's probably about it. Cardinals can go either way. They almost made the playoffs. Seahawks are Super Bowl champs. Oh, Raiders twice. Chiefs, we'll probably end up splitting those. Broncos, we hopefully split those. Rams will probably be good, but Ravens will probably be good. Patriots, of course, will be good. Niners will be good. Trap game. Not going to pick the Raiders. I'm going to say that Dolphins game. It's an early game. It's 10 a.m. It's in Miami. They have a week and a half off before that because they play. Oof. Okay. So yeah, I'm picking that Dolphins game. So the Chargers play in Oakland, then play the Chiefs at home, then play the Broncos, all in a span of 11 days. Didn't we do this last year too? In 11 days, they go from San Diego to Oakland because I got to get there, and then Oakland back to San Diego. Stay there for the Chiefs game, and then 3 days later, fly to Denver do that. And then about a week later, a little bit more than a week later, they're going to fly all the way to Miami and play in the morning. So they'll probably be beaten down and worn from those 3 games in 11 days. And the Dolphins will probably be a little bit better than everyone's giving them credit for. The team will be looking ahead to their bye week. So yeah, I'm saying that trap game is at Miami Dolphins on November 2nd. Don't want to spend too much time looking at it. Yeah, we lost to Miami last year, right? Another one of those bad games where we could have won on the goal line, but we didn't. Marcus Gilchrist is practicing with the first team most of the time in training camp. Do you still really think he isn't making the roster? I'm starting to come around on the idea that he will. What is your thoughts on Incognito playing for us if we get him for cheap? No, thank you. Thank you, Nick, for reminding me that there's crazy police declaring war on their own city, the tanks, all that. I will watch that in 15 minutes and be sad, but in the meantime, we're going to keep ignoring that. Because this is not a political podcast. Is Adai still competing for the starting spot? He still gets plenty of snaps as the second strong safety, but can he win the starting role in preseason or September? I assumed he'd win it earlier. He can still totally win it. So a lot of what you see with the depth chart early in the preseason is kind of motivation. Some guys get motivated when you give them roles. So, if they were to say Marcus Gilchrist, hey, you're the 3rd or 4th cornerback and the backup strong safety, he probably would have pouted and been mad. So they're like, hey, you're the starting strong safety. Don't let us down. And he's probably like, yeah, and he gets all pumped up and he plays well. Some guys, especially young guys like Jaleel Adai, sometimes you put them, even if you want them to be your starter by the time week 1 rolls around, you make them the backup. Sometimes you make them 3rd string. So they work hard to earn the starting spot. They get a little bit more respect from the veterans that way. And sometimes that if you hand a guy who started the last couple games of last year the starting role this year, hey, you're the starter. Maybe he's not working as hard this year as he did last year. So even though right now Gilchrist is getting the 1st string strong safety snaps and practice, I suspect there's still a very good chance that Jaleel Adai could win that spot. Even if he doesn't win the starting job, they're still going to play. They're still going to split snaps there quite a bit, like they did last year. When Adai was starting to come on and Gilchrist was still the starter, they basically did like 50-50 snaps. Can you provide a breakdown of the whole new San Diego shared stadium thing? The articles are too boring for my ADD. The convention center is old and small. The Chargers are trying to get a new stadium right next to it. They're coming up with the idea of, hey, what if we build a thing in the basement of the stadium that the convention center can use whenever they want? That helps the convention center, and it gets us a stadium. There you go. Done. Do you think any presumed safe veterans won't make the roster, i.e. Gilchrist, Marshall, Vincent Brown? Richard Marshall could totally be cut. Vincent Brown could totally be cut. You misspelled Gilchrist, but I still think Marcus Gilchrist could be cut. But definitely, I'd almost put money on Marshall and Brown being cut at this point. Looking through the comments. Tell me why the Chargers finished last again. Okay. For anyone who saw the title of that article but didn't read the article, that's one in a series of 4. where I outlined scenarios in which the Chargers could finish in 4th, 3rd, 2nd, or 1st place in the AFC West. I thought it was kind of chicken shit if I just went like, oh, they'll finish 3rd, 2nd, or 1st because, of course, the Raiders are finishing in last. Crazier things have happened than the 2014 Raiders not finishing in last place. So if the Chargers finish in last, the way I outlined it, it's either because Phillip Rivers gets hurt, seriously hurt, or Matt Schaub has a Phillip Rivers-like rejuvenation year, earns comeback player of the year, or whatever the hell Phillip Rivers got last year, and the Chargers just don't play very well. Or Phillip Rivers gets hurt and Matt Schaub is awesome. Lismore traded for 7th rounder, not 6th. It's a 2015 7th rounder. But Reyes has done a 180, missing in action or whatever you want to call it. Can't believe Reyes has gone backwards in just 3 seasons. It's been 2 seasons. 2! He had a good one and a bad one. I don't know that you can call that... Okay, the end of last season, Reyes had played bad and Legia had played bad, right? Right. And we were ready to hate both of them. And then Corey Legia went and got surgery. And we were like, oh man, he must have had that injury all along. Well, that explains it. But then we just kept on hating Kendall Reyes. As far as we know, Kendall Reyes was just as hurt. Maybe he just didn't, whatever he was hurting from, he didn't need surgery. Like, give the guy a chance. 50% of the time he's been in the league, he's been very good. I don't know if you've ever heard this phrase before, but there is one out there referred to as a sophomore slump. The way in which it works is you come into the league, you're very talented, you have your moves and your skills and whatever, and you play well, and then the rest of the league gets film on you. They learn your game, they learn your tricks, they learn everything you want to do, and then they stop you from doing that. They don't have to necessarily even be better than you. They just stop you from doing what you want to do. And then the good players learn new stuff. They learn how to get around the defense when the defense is trying to stop them from doing what they wanted to do in their rookie year. So I don't know that you can just throw Kendall Reyes away because he had a bad sophomore season. A lot of guys have a bad sophomore season. I'm willing to say that's a sophomore slump, and hopefully he learns from it and he goes back to being as good or better than he was his rookie year. Just so pessimistic. I was thinking Jets, Jags, or Dolphins. I don't know that you can call the Jets game a trap game. I mean, maybe it is because they're coming out to San Diego. I still think that Jets team is weird. Like, I know a lot of people, I really liked them at the end of last year, and then I haven't really liked anything they've done in the offseason. Really kind of hate the Chris Johnson signing, and their offense is still just really strange. And I don't know. That's an old, strange team that could easily go 8-8 if with some good coaching, which they have. But Jags. I mean, Jaguars looked good at the end of last year. They don't have any wide receivers. Their quarterbacks are all crap. So I still think we beat them. But I'm going Dolphins. I was just about to ask a question about keeping a guy on the basis of their value on special teams. Yeah, we have Stuckey, we have Gatchkar, and we have Ajira Tutu. They're all our special teams guys. Not to mention Mike Wint and Nick Novak. Is it just me, or have the Chargers suddenly fallen in love with Tariq Williams? And why do you think so? Please answer, man. I'm a big fan of yours. I'm a big fan of you. I will tell you exactly why the Chargers have fallen in love with Tariq Williams. You are not wrong. That is totally a real thing. So, when Tariq Williams was drafted last year, hold on, I'm almost
Finish with it. He was a defensive end that was a pretty good pass rusher. The thought process was, we'll turn him into a pass rusher. He'll be a 3-4 outside linebacker who's a pass rusher. Worst case scenario, if he doesn't work in the 3-4, when we go to a four-man front, we're playing nickel defense, he can be our defensive end then. So they tried him there, and he was okay. He wasn't much of a pass rusher, and I think there was some concern about, well, he was a late-round pick. He's not worth a lot, but whatever. Then they drafted Jerry Atachu. The moment they moved up and drafted Jerry Atachu, Tariq Williams' whole career took a left turn. They said, you're not a pass rusher anymore. In our defense, there's two types of outside linebackers. There's the pass rusher, which is your Dwight Freeney, Jerry Atachu, even your Melvin Ingram. They're basically your weak side outside linebackers. Their job is to get the quarterback. Then you have your strong side outside linebackers. These guys are not really asked to rush the passer. They're asked to do other things. One of those things being stop the run. You know, beat your guy, send the run back the other way. Hold the line. The other thing is occasionally guard tight ends and running backs in pass coverage. So, after the draft, they told Tariq Williams, you're no longer a weak side outside linebacker. You're not a pass rusher. Don't think about pass rushing. What we want you to learn how to do, defend the run, guard the pass. Defend the pass. Man coverage, zone coverage, whatever. By time minicamp rolled around and by time training camp rolled around, he's very good at these things. He's going to... So Jarrett Johnson makes like $2 million this year. Next year he makes like $9 million. And it costs almost no money to cut him. So Jarrett Johnson will not be on the San Diego Chargers next year unless he completely restructures his contract, which he's probably going to be like 34, 35 years old, which is really no point. Team's probably going to cut him. He'll probably retire. He'll go off in the sunset, become a country music star or something. And Tariq Williams is going to replace him. And right now, it almost looks like Tariq Williams is going to be a pretty good replacement. He may not be Jarrett Johnson now, but he might be Jarrett Johnson a year from now, which is awesome because Jarrett Johnson is very key to this defense. He's very good in coverage. He's very smart. And he's a total animal against the run. And so once they focused Tariq Williams on don't try and win the pass rush game, which was important because he's kind of the opposite of Jerry Atachu. He's got some moves. He's got no speed. So once they focused him on stop the run, basically be smart and use your strength, which is what Jarrett Johnson does, he's very good at that. So that's why the Chargers are suddenly in love with him because he went from being a maybe he's a good third-string weak side outside linebacker to like, damn, he's a good backup strong side outside linebacker. That's why. And it's awesome because he's a good kid. He works hard. They like him a lot as a person. So good for him. If you think Brown is on his way out, the wide receivers look like Allen, Floyd, Royal, Hajira Tutu, Inman, Tevin Reese. Is there any competition at the position outside of that? No. How scary is the Broncos' defense? So someone sent me a stat today. Actually, John Crean sent me a stat today that last year when Von Miller played for the Broncos, the games he was there, they had the fourth best defense in the league, passing defense in the league. When he didn't play for them, they had the worst passing defense in the league. If Von Miller plays 10-plus games for them and DeMarcus Ware plays 10-plus games for them and Aqib Talib stays healthy, TJ Ward stays healthy, that is a terrifying defense. Absolutely terrifying. But, maybe injuries will, I don't know. Are you worried about the Raiders' improved defense? Not really. Still very old. Thanks for mentioning Mike Wint. Nothing personal on him, but having a roster spot for a long snapper seems asinine to me, especially now the NFL rules make the long snapper untouchable. Why can't we just teach our backup center to long snap or Weddle? Couple of reasons. I mean, yeah, by all means, teach the backups. Teach Rich Orenberger to be a long snapper. The whole long snapper as a specialty thing actually started with the Giants 49ers game like a decade ago, and then I think the following year the whole thing with Romo in the playoffs. Specialty guys became all the rage, and the Chargers had David Binn for 15 years, and so it just seemed like it made sense to. But the reality of it is there's two reasons. One, it's a totally different snap. It's a totally different snap. Snapping to a quarterback who's right behind you or 3 yards behind you is totally different than snapping to a guy who's on his knee 10 yards behind you. You can screw up a center by having him snap one way and then trying to have him switch back to the other. You can totally screw up his snap. He'll be throwing the ball over the quarterback's head or at his feet. So that's one reason. Another is, even though the long snapper is untouchable, it is still a very dangerous position. You could still get injured really, really easily. So it makes sense to pay a guy, the veteran minimum and have him snap that one way and have him be the one at risk. Then have your center, your backup center, Eric Weddle, for God's sakes, be in the middle of that pile with a bunch of people falling on top of you and trying to snap it a certain way and whatever. So it's asinine to a point, but there is some logic behind it. Who do you think has the biggest CAA on the Chargers? The hell is CAA? You better not be asking me about dick size. Williams and Walker as the Sam replacement for Johnson, and Ingram and Itachu as the outside linebacker replacements for Freeney is an encouraging thought. Walker plays everywhere. Reggie Walker is everywhere. I don't know how comfortable I'd be with him starting in any of those positions, but he plays all of them very, very well as a backup. In your opinion and recent memory, who on the Chargers roster this preseason is getting no mention, press coverage, etc., etc.? I say Jarrett Johnson. No one is even talking about him. Why? A fro among few responds. It's funny because I think Jarrett Johnson is the only outside linebacker graded out positive in his play by Pro Football Focus. Yes, the reason here is, like a fro among few says, he's old. He doesn't play a sexy position. He doesn't do a lot of interviews. He doesn't say anything controversial. He's not going to put up incredible stats. Basically, the guys who want to be stars, want to be in the press, want to be doing radio interviews, want to have their name on Chargers.com and their pictures on Chargers.com, for the most part, those are the guys you see doing those things. Then there's guys who just don't care. Like, if you ever notice, when 90% of the time Nick Hardwick gets mentioned by anyone, it's by Phillip Rivers. It's really not usually the press. It's not usually Chargers.com. It's almost always Phillip Rivers, because they're buddies, and Phillip just likes talking about his center. So Jarrett Johnson is like, he just doesn't care. Jeremy Clary doesn't care. He doesn't want media attention. Never has. But then there are guys that do. Keenan Allen wants it. Keenan Allen wants media attention. So he gets it. He's a wide receiver. He wants it. He gets it. Fine. You know, the guys that want it are the ones that get it, and then the rookies do because they're sexy, and then guys like Melvin Ingram, who, you know, there's an outside chance he could have a great year and put up super sexy numbers. Sometimes they get coverage, but no, the old veterans that don't want media coverage and aren't going to be doing anything special. Have you heard anyone mention Donald Butler since his contract got signed? I haven't. So some guys want it, some guys don't. Okay, Manti Te'o against Dallas. Me likey. You likey? It's a weird way to ask a question. All right, it's 8:05. Doing this for over an hour. I'll do it for like 5 more minutes. So get your questions in now if you want them answered. Manti Te'o against Dallas. Yeah, he looked fine. I don't know what you really want. I didn't see him run through an offensive line and break and smash into a blocker, get a running back in the backfield. Like, I'm going to be impressed by Manti Te'o when I see him running headfirst into an offensive line, which I haven't seen yet. Was Sproles the last time we had a dynamic kick returner? I think so. Don't you dare talk bad about Richard Goodman. Just a fun fantasy question. If you could add one player who played from the Chargers from the entire history of the team to this year's roster to help them win the Super Bowl, who would you choose and why? One player who played for the Chargers from the entire history of the team. Well, oh man, my answer is going to be super unpopular, isn't it? Oh man. Okay. I'm going to give two answers. I'm going to give one on offense and one on defense. You guys aren't going to really like either one of them, but I'm going to do it. On offense, Vincent Jackson. Vincent Jackson was the best wide receiver I've ever seen play live. He literally did everything well. He got off the line well. He was fast in a straight line. His feet were great. He was incredibly strong. His hands were crazy. He was smart. He was in sync with Rivers. He was a hard worker. Was he an asshole? Absolutely. Did he kick the flag? Yes, he did. Did he get arrested a whole bunch? Sure. But you replace Malcolm Floyd with Vincent Jackson, and you can't stop this offense. Bunch of people picking. Well, no, that's the same guy twice saying he would pick Tomlinson. I don't know. Tomlinson over Ryan Matthews really going to make that big of a deal? You have to remember, Tomlinson ran behind one of the best offensive line, probably the best offensive line in team history. Jamal Williams, I see, is a guy there that someone picked. I thought about him, but the defensive guy I'm going to go with is actually, before his injury, Sean Merriman. Sean Merriman was the closest thing I've ever seen to Lawrence Taylor. I'm too young to have seen Lawrence Taylor live, but I've read a lot about him. I've seen a lot of video of him. He interests me because he was just this unstoppable force. He was so strong and so fast and just ferocious, just ferocious. Offensive linemen didn't want to block him because he was just ferocious. And he broke up plays in the backfield, and he got to the quarterback, and he created a whole bunch of turnovers. And Sean Merriman, before his major knee injury, was the closest I've ever seen to that. Probably the best pass rusher I've ever seen, like in person or as a Charger fan, I guess, since my time as a Charger fan. So offense, I'm going Vincent Jackson. Defense, I'm going Sean Merriman. It's not that I don't like the pass rushers on the team this year. I just, anytime you can add a guy like that, you're adding wins. Let's see. How are my boy Tevin Reese's chances looking? I know he had one catch, but looked good. Uh, his chances look good. Doesn't mean he's going to make the team, but I'd say it's probably better than 50-50 at this point. Favorite Robin Williams movie? Good Will Hunting. Jordan Bean or Ricky Henny? Ooh. I guess Jordan? I don't know. I've been meaning to like meet those guys in person because I never really have. We've chatted a bunch on Twitter, but that's about it. They both seem like really nice guys. I like the work they do, but probably Jordan. Is Inman a? I don't know if Dontrell Inman is built like Vincent Jackson. Okay. For Manti to get 100 tackles or more this year. That's not his job. It's not his job. His job is not to get 100 tackles. His job is to make sure Donald Butler gets 100 tackles. All right. None of the other questions really interest me that much. We're going to end it. I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to go watch Missouri burn to the ground, apparently. But we'll be back next week. Me and Ben are recording the BFTB podcast next week. I think Monday, maybe Tuesday. We'll have it up Tuesday or Wednesday, sort of breaking down the Seahawks game. I'll probably do another one of these next Wednesday or Thursday. Look for the Generally Speaking podcast to show up on the website tomorrow. I'll do a post about it because we got a bunch of other stuff to cover as well. But I guess go Chargers. Let's hope for no injuries. And I'll see you next week.